Welcome to the consulting rooms of Deckard and Booth. We are your cinematic sleuths investigating the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir. And today's case is none other than 2016's The Nice Guys, starring Russell Crowe, Ryan Gosling, and Kim Basinger, amongst others. The Nice Guys. Amelia, a girl in hiding, hires Healy to put March, a detective seeking her, in his place. After two hitmen try to get Healy to reveal her whereabouts, he concernedly pairs with March to find her. Matthew, what was your initial reaction to watching The Nice Guys? Because this is the first time you've ever seen it, right?
I watched this for the first time about 8 hours ago. Yeah, it's not a film I knew at all until you put me onto it. And if you want a summary of what I thought about it, I think it's really, really good. And what I like about it is that it is a proper film noir PI detective story, but it's a comedy as well. It's a buddy cop comedy as well, but that it doesn't overstep the mark on either of those things. It's neither too funny nor too serious. It's like American Werewolf in London, which does horror and comedy in pitched at just the right levels.
Yeah,
this is the film noir equivalent for me. I thought it was fantastic.
I think Pitch Perfect sums up The Nice Guys for me. I knew about the film when it was coming out. It came out in 2016, June of 2016. The box office, it cost $50 million to make. The box office was $60 million, so it did not make money. Really, it unfortunately was not a total bomb. Critics liked it generally, but financially it didn't really do what the studio WB wanted. Which was a shame, because I remember it coming out. I remember there being a little bit of marketing, but I didn't see it until home release. So I saw it sometime in late 2016 when it, by the time it had come out, versus going to the cinema to see it, which I almost wish I had gone to the cinema to see it for many reasons. One of those being I would love a sequel to this, but we're never going to get it. It came out in a very cluttered summer. And I wondered, do you think that was part of the reason why it wasn't on your radar in 2016? Yeah,
probably. And I think, would I be right in saying that around this time the cinema market is saturated with superhero films?
Yeah, it was saturated. It really, 2016 was interesting because the comic book saturation was beginning to happen. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't to the point where you hated every comic book movie, but like Deadpool came out, which I loved Deadpool, but then you had Doctor Strange and Civil War. 2016 was a really busy year. It was big for comic book movies. Those sort of overshadowed pretty much anything that came out that year. So The Nice Guys did not get much attention at all, which is a shame, because
it is a shame. It's a crying shame. And it's a shame generally that films like Civil War and Doctor Strange and all those sort of swallowed up everything else. But this is a gem of a film that really has suffered from that tsunami of comic book popcorn dross, really. And it's a shame, because it's so well done on almost every level that it should have been far bigger than it was. It should have been far more successful than it was. And we should have had Nice Guys too. The Nicer Guys, or whatever they would have called it.
If only this thing could have come out maybe 2013. I feel like that was the last year this probably could have come out and been a much bigger hit. But we should probably clue people in on who worked on this film before we dive into the story. So the director is Shane Black. So Black is interesting to me. I really like him a lot. I like him maybe more as a writer than I do as a director, but that can also depend on the movie, because one of his more recent films was The Predator, which he acted in the first Predator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's part of the cast. He's one of the commando guys.
Is he really?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. So he's an actor, he's a writer, he's a director, he's a very talented guy. Shane Black is really talented. But sometimes his films are a little hit and miss. And I was very excited for his Predator movie and was incredibly disappointed because it didn't feel like a Shane Black movie. I was like, Nice Guys is great, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is great, like he's really good, he can do it, and something happened with that, because he also directed Iron Man 3, which was the second best Iron Man movie there is.
Now that's the one with Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley.
Yeah. That is good because that tries to do something different. As I remember it, I've only seen it a couple of times, but as I remember it, it takes Stark out of the suit for
for a
much
lot of the
film.
time. Yeah.
So he has to do something different. He can't rely on the suit, which for a superhero film is quite ballsy. But also he's doing something. He's taking a risk. I think he's taking a calculated risk on making it more of a character film than a superhero film, and I admire that.
Interestingly, Shane Black clearly likes his detective stories. Blatantly loves his detective stories because Iron Man 3 is basically a detective story. Iron Man is a detective trying to work out the clues to who was doing X, Y, and Z. It's very unlike the other more typical superhero movies.
And in Iron Man 3, there's a twist, isn't there? There's almost a whodunit element, which shines through, really. It's one of the better things about all of those MCU films for me.
Another thing on Shane Black is he's a fantastic writer. So he wrote the script for Lethal Weapon in 87. So he's the writer for Lethal Weapon, which I love. That's a classic buddy cop movie. He wrote the story for Lethal Weapon 2. He also wrote The Last Action Hero and, of course, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and a few others. So as a writer, his love for buddy cop, humorous PIE sort of, noir fiction is just evident in just about everything he does, in my opinion.
I was going to say there's an obvious trend there, isn't there? If you look at all those movies you just quoted, there's a common thread going through each one of those.
Yeah.
Possibly more than one common thread going through each of those.
Yeah.
That becomes self-evident the more you watch. Yeah.
So I have huge respect for him as a writer. I think he's a great writer. And he's a very strong director for the most part. There's another writer on this film named Anthony Bagarrosi. If I butchered your name, sorry. He doesn't have a lot of writing credits to his name, and his most recent one is the Roadhouse film on Prime, which isn't very good. So I can't speak to his filmography or whatnot, but I will say that the identity with the writing in Nice Guys is more Shane Black than I think anyone else. Do you know how long Shane Black was in the process of trying to get this film made?
No, but I'm guessing what you said, it was quite a while.
Yeah, so
I know it was originally. Was it going to be a TV series at one point? Wanted it to be a TV series?
Yeah, it was going to be a movie. It was going to be a movie first. But the initial idea began in 2001. So he hung around with this idea for a very long time. Initially, it was going to be a contemporary film. I mean, that would have been interesting. I would love to see what that would have looked like, the Nice Guys in contemporary period. But we kind of get that with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I think he got it with that. No one wanted to touch it. I think a lot of the themes were still quite relevant. I think he was doing a lot of the same thematic stuff with the corporations and the pornography and all that kind of stuff. Then they decided, well, maybe they'll turn it to a TV show. That didn't really play out very well. Then decided to go period, but his producer, Joe Silver, was not sure of it. But do you know the film that changed Joel Silver's mind? Do you know what the film was that changed his mind on doing a period piece?
That was it, not Sherlock Holmes?
Was Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes.
And I can understand, because it was a success. I can understand why that would change somebody's mind to do Nice Guys as a period piece. All the better for it, I would say.
Yeah, the connective tissue is interesting between these films because you have Felipe Russell, who is the cinematographer for The Nice Guys, also the cinematographer for Sherlock Holmes 2009, Game of Shadows, and a bunch of others. You can kind of see where all these pieces were coming into place to kind of make people who were maybe worried about The Nice Guys be a little less worried that you can do fun, big summer action blockbuster, with your period piece. The main thing that really ensured that The Nice Guys got made was attaching Gosling and Crowe. Apparently they sent the script to them, and then within like 3 days they agreed, and bang,
it was the option working with each other respectively.
Casting wise, I think this is a really brilliantly casted film in my opinion.
So do I.
I love it.
Yeah, so do I. It's one of those films where once you've set, and again, I'll repeat, this is the first time I've seen it, so I am coming fresh to it. And the minute those characters are established, the two main characters are established, it's impossible to separate them from the actors that are playing them. And you think, nobody else could do this. Nobody else could get this relationship quite right. It's almost sort of Paul Newman and Robert Redford as Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And you say to yourself, there were other actors that they could have cast that would have been popular at the time. Fully accept that. but it wouldn't have sparked anywhere near as much as it does without these two.
Going back to 2016, I remember being kind of surprised by this casting. Odd pairing, an odd choice. But again, it's very Shane Black.
It is an odd coupling, but that's the point, isn't it? That's the whole point. We'll come on to this, but one of the things I like about it is that this is a partnership that happens organically, if that's the right word, and it would not have happened in any other set of circumstances than this plot. So the fact they are mismatched is absolutely fantastic.
Everyone is great. I like Angourie Rice, who plays Holly March, and Kim Basinger is fantastic. Like the two goons that they have in the movie. What's the one's called the old guy played by Keith David. I love it. I love his vibe. I love everything. I like the kind of he gets the blue bomb blown up in his face. Yeah, he's a bit silly with the glasses. He reminded me. Actually, his name is Blueface in the credits, which is funny. He sort of reminded me of Blueface. Sort of reminded me of the wide-eyed guy from The Big Sleep. Yeah, he's kind of playing that kind of goon. Well, but he works here where he doesn't work.
What you said before about Black knowing his detective stuff. There's a lot of references in this film to other stuff. I'll come on to some favorite examples later. But I would not be surprised if that's not on purpose. I think because I had the same reaction to that. I thought this is the same sort of wide-eyed, crazy goon who's a bit too comic to be taken fully seriously. And I thought he's too close to The Big Sleep. This surely too close to The Big Sleep for it to be a coincidence. And he's not been sort of told to act that way without some reference to that. Yeah, that performance in The Big Sleep. It can't be a coincidence.
Yeah, no, I don't think it is. If I remember right, in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, there are chapters in the movie, and even those chapters are named after. Maybe not in full, but some of them are named after Raymond Chandler titles. Yeah. So Black he clearly loves his hard-boiled stuff. He loves his gumshoe, and these two guys were the modern equivalent of the two goons from The Big Sleep, and they worked charmingly here.
I like the fact that one of them is old.
Yes, old guy.
Past his best. It's brilliant.
The film is set in 1977. I like period pieces, and sometimes I can go a little bit too far and be a little bit too nuts. But this one with Nice Guys, I felt had that balance right of not being. It wasn't obnoxiously pop culture 70s. It felt in many ways like a. It's obviously hyper, but it felt like a real 1970s. Because like the other end of the spectrum would be American Gangster, which also has Russell Crowe in it, and that's very gritty 1970s. Whereas, and I love that as well. But this one is the more playful side. But it doesn't feel like it. I didn't have like a cotton candy vibe, like with say something like Austin Powers, which I like Austin Powers. Those are fun, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. And you know that one of my bugbears with historical fiction generally, be that movies or novels or whatever, is where the historical side of it is too obviously signposted, and they beat you over the head with the fact this is in period, don't forget. Whereas when you go to contemporary examples of a film of this type, they don't do that. They don't have to because they're set in their contemporary time. What makes a good period piece for me is when you think, this is costumed, shot, directed as if it were made in the period in which it is set. There's a bit of nod. To the fact that it's a modern twist on that sort of period. But you're right. There's nobody with like sort of porn mustaches and wild flares, and nobody with sort of massive collars. They're there, but they're a bit like in LA Confidential. They are there and they are authentic, but they're not drawn attention to. Nobody draws attention to them. Yeah, and I think that is a credit to any period piece that is able to say, this is a period, and it is, and we know it is. We don't need to say any more. And there are some clever nods to it. I mean, the fact that there are a lot of references to the Rockford Files TV show in this, which is from the 70s. So his business card is very much a sort of Rockford File business card. And again, Black must know that. And that sort of thing, so a contemporary 1970s private eye has a business card that looks like that. So Ryan Gosling has one that looks the same. That's enough to say we're in that period then, I think it's great. I think all that period detail, when you're not smacked in the face with it, works really well.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's dive into the story. I love the opening of this movie. Everything about it. I like how the first thing you hear is the music, and the music instantly places you with its disco vibe. Instantly places you where you are.
It reminded me very much that funky guitar reminded me very much of the Starsky and Hutch theme.
Yeah.
And the streets of San Francisco. You'll be too young to remember the streets of San Francisco, Luke, but it was Michael Douglas and Carl Malden. Again, in the period that this is set, it was mid-70s, and they were detectives on the streets of San Francisco from there. And the theme for that, and a lot of those 70s cop shows had that sort of jangly guitar, that funky guitar. But it was this theme is mixed with strings, which are very film noir-y.
Yes.
So there's a nice sort of balance there, I think, between harking back to one period whilst also harking back to an even earlier period.
Yes. I also love the way, and this you see this a lot with different Shane Black movies, but I love the way he is able to play with glossy popness, but also down and dirty sleaze.
Yeah.
And I think the opening of this movie is a masterclass in how you do that, because you have this fun, funky music playing, and your first sight is you see LA, but then you see this busted up Hollywood sign. So it's like instantly dirty and gross and things are broken. And then you get this kid and he's going to his parents' room, and what does he do? He pulls out a porno mag from his dad's side of the bed. And he's checking out the model named Misty Mountains, which that name cracked me up. It has to be a reference to Lord of the Rings. Because
absolutely.
But like no one ever mentions it, and I'm like, is this Lord of the Rings reference or is it not? Like but what a perfect porno actress name.
It's a perfect porno actress name. Yeah.
If there ever was one, that one is.
It's inspired. That is,
and it does sort of follow. I mean, Shane Black has this sort of vibe, or if you go back to the very first Lethal Weapon, that movie opens up with sort of a dark scenario involving a young beautiful woman who's scantily clad as well, and he sort of that sort of echoed again in this, which I found quite interesting. There's an element of exploitation with some of Black's work like this. So you have the car that crashes into the kid's house, and he goes out and finds lying on the ground in a seductive pose the model who he was looking at, Misty Mountains, sees her lying there dying basically, and the first line she says to him is, how do you like my car, big boy? So it has this element of that kind of, it's all very, very sleazy, but then he does things like he has the kid cover her up, which is trying to be decent. Striking that balance of having this sleazy element, but then not letting it go overboard and making you feel sleazy, making the viewer feel sleazy for participating in this film. For us, we're the kid covering her up, basically.
We are, yeah. The kid's quite happy to look at her in two dimensions in a sleazy magazine.
Yes.
When he sees her in 3D,
yes,
and it's real,
yes,
then he's very uncomfortable. And
yes,
in a nutshell, that's the sort of character beat for that very small role. It also encapsulates exactly what you're saying, that there is this, and it's what film noir says as a whole, isn't it? It's certainly what Raymond Chandler says. Excellent, rosy, beautiful exterior, but inside it's as sleazy as they come, and it's filth, and it's all built on corruption and decay. And I think in that opening scene, that is encapsulated, and quite poignantly. When he tries to cover up the corpse, it's quite touching.
So you aren't a fan of voiceover with PI movies, and this movie starts off with some very strong voiceover from two characters. What did you think of the voiceover?
I think it's brilliant, and
Agree.
I think it's really well done. And I love the fact that there's no setup to it. You meet these two just as they are on that particular day. So there's no explanation why Ryan Gosling's in a bath.
Fully dressed.
Fully dressed. It's just there. It just is. Accepts it. And Crowe's voiceover is that gruff, almost cliched PI voiceover.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absurdly cynical and nasty about life and everything. Yes.
One of my favorite lines is, and it's in that opening monologue, and he says something like, "Marriage is buying a house for somebody you hate."
Yes, I love that. Yes.
What a line. That is a brilliant line. But then when Gosling's voiceover comes in, it's equally cynical, but it's a lot softer somehow, and it's a lot more sort of jaded. Crowe's accepting what he is and where he is in life. Gosling's still sort of yet to get to that point, and he's still on his knees and on his ass.
Something that really impressed me was you have two PI characters. Yeah, sure. Healy is a more of an enforcer rather than a private eye, and March is the your typical, your official private eye. But they both serve the same function. In the literature, those figures are quite interchangeable. A very ballsy move to have two characters of this same sort of type playing off each other. These guys are very similar, but different enough, just different enough.
Yeah.
To make it feel worth it. It's really impressive. So I love the way this film opens. So you have Healy's voiceover, and he's following a 13-year-old girl who's apparently being groomed by some guy, and he goes and punches the guy in the face after the girl leaves. I love that. March wakes up in a bathtub, and he's hears his daughter on the voice answering machine saying, by the way, it's my birthday, blah, blah, blah. Basically, these two characters are slowly moving into each other's orbit as this movie is progressing, and it all sort of hinged on this girl named Amelia who hires Healy because she's being followed by, I believe she has a couple of guys. So I think she's referring to the two guys who are following her, but also I think she's aware of Healy, or not, sorry, also aware of March being on her tail as well. Now, I love that scene with Healy and Amelia. When she's sitting in her car, she's telling him, she gives him the money, he counts it, and he's like, "You're short." She's like, "What?" He's like, "You're $7 short." $7.
Yeah, $7.
And he won't do the job unless she pays him the $7.
Character driven writing all over. That is exactly what you need to know about him.
And you can feel the awkwardness. You can see it in his face that he feels bad about what he's doing, but he's also fully aware that this is a life and this is how it has to be done. So give me my $7. Don't rip me off. So March is also looking for Amelia for different reasons. I love his whole sort of beginning of his investigation where he goes to the bar. And he's like, "Oh, can you give me the receipts?" And the guy's like, "No." So then he tries to break in, and by cracking a glass with his fist, almost like kills himself because he slices his wrist open and is bleeding out.
I love the fact that he's incompetent, but he's not sort of Inspector Clouseau incompetent. He's doing the right things, but not quite doing them well enough. So breaking the glass panel is the right thing to do for what he wants to achieve. Yes. But he doesn't do it well enough, and he slices his wrist open. It's fabulous. It's fabulous.
I do, and I love that. Actually, that is one thing I really enjoy about this movie. Is Healy is definitely the more competent of the two. But again, even if you go back to something like Lethal Weapon, both Gibson and Glover's characters are very, very competent in what they do. They don't ever let each other down, where I love this idea of, March is sort of always, he's just always off mark by a little bit, sometimes a lot of bit, but he's just sort of always, and most of his offness is rooted in his tragedy, which we learn throughout the movie. Yeah. He's an alcoholic, and he's an alcoholic because we've learned that his wife is dead, and she died, and she died because their house had a gas leak that he couldn't smell because he can't smell, and then the house burst into flames. So he's carrying around a lot of guilt. and he's just sort of drunkenly trying to make his way, in this Sin City. I like that about his character.
It's good to have a central PI character who isn't always on the ball. He is a detective who really needs, a bit more encouragement and training.
You can almost argue, though, with March's character that throughout the course of the film, he slowly becomes more and more competent.
Oh, he does, definitely.
As it goes along.
Oh, he does, definitely. Yeah, that's his arc. That's his arc. And one of my favourite scenes we'll come on to later is when he misinterprets a clue. And that is real sort of character growth, that. Not long after he has misinterpreted that clue, he actually solves it. And too often, these sort of central detectives in literature and in film are ciphers. They're just there to process the information that they discover. And they don't have journeys of their own. They don't progress. They don't develop. Far too often, they stay just as they are throughout the whole. I mean, Sherlock Holmes is a bit like that.
Oh yeah.
Holmes doesn't change throughout the course of those 60 stories. He's just the same. So to see a PI go from washed up and incompetent before he's even really got going because of his personal tragedy to becoming, dare I say, the hero of the piece is a fabulous journey. But that he wouldn't get there without Healy. As
the film progresses, Healy finds March, tells him to back off Amelia. It's a very, very funny back and forth. I love their first encounter. I love how sort of afraid March is. He's such a wuss in the face of real danger. But again, when we talk about those wonderful character changes, by the end of the movie, here in the beginning, he's giving up his clients. He's giving everything away. He's like, don't hurt me. By the end of the movie, he's like, I think I'm invincible. And he's just walking out into the open while people are shooting at him.
People shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great line in that opening, or that first confrontation where Russell Crowe says, we're going to play a game. It's called Shut Up Unless You're Me.
I like the bit where March is like, put a fork in me, but don't really put a fork in me. Because he's like, this guy will actually put a fork in me.
And again, two nods to one to the Rockford Files, because March's gun is in the cookie jar.
Yes.
And that's where Rockford kept his gun. But again, I don't think this is a coincidence. When Russell Crowe breaks his arm or fractures his arm, he's already got a bandage on. Then he breaks it, so then he has to have a cast on. And that remains on for the rest of the film. And if that isn't a nod to Jack Nicholson's nose bandage in Chinatown,
yes,
I don't know what is. And that's got to be intentional. This is an example of the film knowing where it's come from, knowing what its roots are, and being quite happy to declare them.
Is what it is with confidence, and you can feel the confidence in every scene.
You can feel the confidence in every scene. And there's something much more impressive about a film or a book saying, I am unashamedly a noir love letter.
Yeah.
With comedy elements than trying to be something it's not.
One of the other things that's fantastic about this movie is the pacing. It moves at such a perfect pace that you're never bored. You're never bored. So once Healy and March have their first interaction, Healy goes home, finds the two gangsters, old man and Blueface. They have an interaction because they're the two guys who are really looking for Amelia. And this is where we start beginning to see interesting character changes for both Healy and for March. Once these guys have come and gone, and March, gets the upper, or not March. Once Healy gets the upper hand and gets these guys out the door and away, he then is mulling this over. He's like, wow, these guys are deadly and they mean serious business. And this Amelia girl is going to get killed if I don't do something about it. And the interesting thing that he does is he goes and he's willing to pay March to find her. He's not going to do it himself, but he's willing to part with his own money to find a stranger who he made sure she paid him $7.
Absolutely. And he's willing to pay $400.
Yes.
To do it, but not $600. He won't do
not $600. And what's also really fun is right before March and Healy come together and Healy hires him and they basically agree to work together. There's a scene where March is at Mrs. Glenn's house, and she is this is where the big mystery of the movie is coming from. Is she is the aunt of Misty Mountains, and she swears that she saw her daughter alive 2 days after her daughter was apparently, who was dead. We all saw her die, and she's just desperate. And again, that's just wonderful classic noir mystery there. Like, I saw them, but 2 days they're there. It's perfectly done.
It's a good mystery. It's a good puzzle. Noir fiction isn't always about the puzzle. Sometimes it is, but not always. But this is a really good one.
I love that March, in that scene, he is beginning to feel guilty about what he's doing, because earlier on in the movie he basically says that he gets his business by more or less ripping off elderly people who don't know what they're talking about, finding a dead spouse whose ashes are in the urn on the mantle, he's right there, but I'm going to take your money and go and quote look for him. And I love the fact that he tells Mrs. Glenn, I am sorry, I shouldn't have taken your money. He's not going to give the money back, but he is starting to, and he has that conversation with his daughter. He's like, am I a bad person? She's like, yes, you're a dickhead.
Yeah. She's fabulous, that daughter. She's brilliant.
Yes, terrific actor. I really like her. She's a very, very good actor. I was bummed because then she was cast in the new Marvel Spider-Man movies, and I'm like, and she had this like really kind of boring background role. I'm like, you have such a great actor, and you've pushed her to the background. Yeah. Anyway, she's wonderful in this. Fantastic.
Well, we might come on to her a bit later on, but just to say now, what child character that doesn't irritate, for one thing, and what a difference she is to the kid in V.I. Wachowski.
Yes.
What a marked difference in character and actress for what essentially, arguably, is a similar role.
Yeah, she also gives you the feeling of like, this is a kid, but this is a kid who's hurting, her dad is letting her down, her mom is dead, she's carrying this weight, she's wanting to see good in this world, but she just can't. There's just nothing good happening in her life, really. She's the parent in the situation, and you really, it's all, for me, this film is all about confidence, and this film is confident in its scenes, in its characters, in its dialogue. And when a film is this confident, you, the audience, just sort of, you kind of relax a little bit and just go with the flow, which is why I have a couple of issues with the movie, but I'm willing to forgive these couple of issues because everything is so competent.
There is a sense of sort of calming down, because too often you do watch films and you think they're going to screw this up.
Yes,
it's going to be horrendous. I mean, we're not even a third of the way through the film, and you're feeling, no, actually, this is good. And
so then the mystery kind of begins to twist a little bit more, which is really fun. And this happens at Holly's birthday, which has one of my favorite lines. And that's when March curses, and the girl says, "You took the Lord's name in vain." He goes, "No, I didn't, Janet. I found it very useful, Janet." That line, since the first time I've seen this movie, just lives rent free in my brain. Also, the bathroom scene where Healy finds March in the bathroom.
That's hilarious.
The physical comedy is just brilliant. The way he's kicking and dropping the cigarette in his trousers and kicking the door open and trying to get, like, he's so incompetent. It's just, there's a mirror here. Close your eyes.
Yeah. Storytelling wise, I like the fact that when they sit down in that, is it a bowling alley they're in?
Yeah, I think it's a bowling alley or maybe a skating rink. I think it's a bowling alley. It's a bowling alley.
So when they sit down and talk about it, you don't get the cliche of the client coming to the PI's office and hiring. It's told sort of in retrospect, and that's really refreshing. You don't notice it because the build up to that scene where they explain why they're both looking for Amelia, the build up to that is so well done, and it's so full of incident and character that you don't realize it until they start to talk about it. You've no idea why they're both looking for her at all.
Yes, exactly.
And it's such a refreshing change to have that PI commission, if we can call it that, take place off stage, as it were. It's not like the Maltese Falcon where it starts and it's the first scene and it's all exposition.
I also love that in this moment we begin to learn that, we finally we learn what March was really doing. We learn what Healy was really doing, and that is, March is essentially looking for Misty at the request of her aunt, who she saw someone leave the house, and they got the license plate number that led him to Amelia.
Yeah.
So that's how it all ends up connecting.
She's a person of interest. He's not looking for her.
Yes.
He's a person of interest in his search for someone else.
Yes. And so I love how those two things kind of collided that way, but then were misconstrued early on. Now they finally come together. And this is like the film for me is just on fire the rest of the way. Once these two are together and working together to solve this case, it's scene after scene of just great budding mystery, hilarious comedy, and really, really well thought out character arcs that just pay off beautifully. The next scene, they basically go look for Amelia, who is meant to be at a protest in downtown LA. This scene cracked me up.
I love this bit.
What are you protesting? The air? It's bad for the birds or the bees, And the main takeaway from that scene is they find a kid who is willing to take them to Amelia's boyfriend's house. His name is Dean. He's a quote experimental filmmaker. But Dean's house, when they get there, is completely burned down, and we find out that he is a filmmaker. There's hints that he does some porno films, but all of his film stock went up in flames, and he died in the fire as well.
And what this is doing is, in terms of detective story plotting, this is deepening the mystery. It is leads being cut off before the detective can question them. And
the one of the big things that you learn in this scene is that there was a big time producer, a guy by the name of Sid Sadak, and the movie that they were making, that basically Amelia was doing this film with Dean, and Misty Mountains was also in this film, and the title of the film was How Do You Like My Car, Big Boy? Pulling back to the opening of the movie, where that's the thing she says, because she's not saying it as a come on to the boy. She's not kid. Being sleazy. She's actually trying to say something very, very important.
Brilliant setup, and again, a brilliant payoff.
They keep following leads, and they get cut off every time they get really close to one. And so that later that night, they end up going to Sid's house. He's having a big party. As set pieces go, this is one of the great set pieces of the movie.
I love this party.
Yes, it's just insane. It's very what you sort of imagine is probably Playboy-esque, just madness all around, and just in some ways wildly inappropriate, because March's daughter stows away in the boot of the car, and so you have this 13-year-old girl who's walking around this place where there's these porno actors and actresses, and they're watching porn, and she's watching them watching porn, and it's again, it's like this is so sleazy, but the way the writing handles it and the way the film is shot, that you're in a sleazy environment, but that you're safe from the sleaze at the same time.
There's that great bit where Holly says, "Dad, this place is full of whores and stuff." And he says, "Don't say and stuff, just say it's full of whores." And again, a great payoff when she's they're watching a film with one of the porn stars.
Yes.
And she says they were doing anal and stuff. And Holly says, "Don't say and stuff.
Just say you were doing
anal." And it's so, again, it's sleazy. It's a bit sort of, should I be watching this?
Yes.
But she does it so po-faced, and it's obviously something that he says all the time.
Yes.
Don't say and stuff. That it's just ingrained in her, so she says it automatically. That makes it, somehow robs it of its sleaze. It's somehow, like you say, protects you from it. And all of that, he gets so off his face, he ends up swimming with the mermaids.
Oh my gosh. He is more or less useless throughout this whole moment, while Healy is the one actually finding the serious clues.
Yeah, the proper clues.
It is such a bizarre set piece. There's so many weird things. There's the models who are tables. It's just nuts.
Lunatic set piece that goes on for quite a while.
It's a long chunk of film.
And Healy having that fight with the old guy. I like the fact Russell Crowe's got a bit of timber on him. He's obviously drinking his way through life. He says to this bloke, "If you get up, I'll shoot you in your cock." that's because I can't do anymore. I can't fight anymore, so I'll just have some capacity.
And the big sort of payoff that you get is March, through his misadventures, finds a dead body, and this dead body is Sid. Someone has shot Sid and killed him. And this is your very secret cameo from Robert Downey Jr.
Cameo.
And it's only the close-up of his face. The other scenes are not Robert Downey Jr.
What I like in that little bit of that scene, when March has fallen off the balcony and rolled down the hill, he does a really good sort of Lou Costello impression. If you watch those old Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein or meet the Wolfman or whoever it is, when Costello comes up face to face with the monster, he doesn't scream, and he does that silent sort of shaking and sort of whimpering before he shouts for Abbott. And that's what March does here. It's so well done.
The rest of the scene is also really fun. I love the chase where basically one of the two goons, Blueface, captures Holly, or they think March thinks that Holly is in the car with him, but Holly spots Amelia, tells Amelia to run. Holly chases after her, and Blueface chases after both of them, and then March and Healy go after them as well. It's a wonderful series of they always tell you in writing, swing from the positive to the negative in every scene, in every moment. There needs to be something like that. They get this, but this stops, but then they get this, but then this apprehend, and I thought this scene was just perfectly executed with that kind of stuff, to the point where that ending where Blueface has them cornered, and then just this van comes along and just takes him out and then drives away, and then of course Amelia gets away, and Holly is left with this dying man in a quite sweet emotional moment. After all the craziness that we see, she has this very quiet moment with this dying assassin who, Healy, when Healy arrives, tells her to go find someone, and he very brutally takes care of the situation.
Just takes care of it, which again is paid off later. That's yet another set up for a payoff later on.
Yes, and it's because I love that, because we can kind of jump around a little bit. Like at the end of the movie, there's another person that Healy is another assassin that Healy is about to kill, and Holly, she shouts at him, if you do this, I'll never talk to you again. And it's very innocent. What she's saying is so innocent. I'll never talk to you again, as if that matters.
Yeah, well, that is what a kid would say.
Yes. And I love that. And I love that makes him stop. Like he cares that this kid will never talk to me. He cares. He finally cares again. Yeah.
Because Healy is a thug, a brute, but he's sentimental, if that's right. Is that the right word? Sentimental? Sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's not, let's face it, not unlike Crowe's role in LA Confidential. Because they are instead of white beating up wife beaters, he's beating up pedophiles or child groomers, and yet there is one of those protected parties, if we can put it that way, that gets to him. Kim Basinger in LA Confidential, it's Lynn, and here it's Holly, and it changes him.
So then the movie begins its next sort of phase. Everything that they've been following is really sort of come to a dead end, but now someone else wants to talk to Healy and March, and it is the mother of Amelia named Judith Kuttner, who works for the Department of Justice. What Judith tells them is that she knows that Amelia has made this movie. She thinks that she tells them that Amelia thinks that her mother is the one responsible for all these deaths, for her boyfriend and trying to kill her, but she's not. She just wants her daughter brought back home safely, and all that kind of stuff. So she hires the detectives for $5,000. Almost could have got 10, which I thought was a funny gag. Almost could have got 10. That is a good
gag. Yeah.
Hires them for $5,000 to find Amelia and bring her home. So this whole thing is constantly riding on Amelia and this link to Misty Mountains, and it's still continuing, but from a slightly different perspective. Healy found a clue, and this is what you were mentioning earlier. Healy found a clue in Sid Shattuck's house that linked to Amelia, and this is that wonderful clue that March tries to work out. First, they think it's a flight number, and then he's like, Yeah, and he's like, no, it's the date backwards, like they do in Europe.
And so he thinks FLT then is flat,
yes,
rather than flight.
Yes. And it's so fun because this is the turning point for March where he's almost right. He is almost right.
And what I love about the scene is, but you think that he is right. You're suckered into, you believe him, but it's the look on Holly's face, the look of pride on her face, because she's already said you're a rubbish detective, and hate. And then he says, "Well, this is how rubbish I am," and gives this explanation of this clue.
Yeah.
And she's full of pride. It turns out he is rubbish after all. It's a brilliant little rug pull from under the feet.
They go to the location where they think they're meant to go, realize that the building is no longer there. That's when they realize that it's a hotel near the airport that Amelia is meant to go. But when they go there, all hell is breaking loose. The third hitman has arrived and is taking no prisoners. They basically flee, which is not what you would expect of your big heroic private eyes.
No,
you thought they would deal with this guy, but no. They get in the elevator, they go back down, they get in the car, and they're getting the heck out of Dodge.
Getting out of there, yeah. Again, subverting all the tropes, but retains their endearing quality as characters, and it makes you laugh out loud.
By chance, who jumps on top of their car, but Amelia herself, she shoots a gun, she falls off the car, she knocks herself out. They're able to get her home, and this is where we sort of get the contrast in stories. We have what her mother is telling us, and then we have what Amelia is telling us. And Amelia, they made this film to expose corruption. Her mom is corrupt. The government is corrupt. I'm trying to expose corruption, man. But the thing is, Amelia sounds like an absolute jackass. That you're like, this is just some stupid kid who is rattling off, doesn't know what the heck she's talking about. Lo and behold. But still, you're just like, there's nothing about what she's doing. And it's the way she's acting, the entitlement in which she's portraying that just makes you go, oh, God, you are a piece of work.
This is the scene in a traditional detective story where like the informant comes and finally gives you the piece of information that you needed. It makes everything fit into place. That makes you then go on to your third act and solve it.
Yes.
But because of the way she delivers the information, you do say, I wish you just shut up. Brilliant piece of writing.
The film begins to speed towards its conclusion now. So March contacts Judith, and there's going to be a money exchange, and they realize that's a big ruse, and to get the detectives out of the house so that the assassin can go to the house and take care of Amelia. Once they rush back to the house, they confront the assassin guy, who it's a great shootout scene. It's such a fun action scene, shooting up March's house. But then the assassin guy gets away. What did you think when we see that scene of Amelia right after, and she flags a car down? It's the assassin. He just shoots her dead.
It's a shocking scene.
It is.
It makes you sit up and say, what? Again, it's a rug pull from under the feet because she's been the whole point throughout. Yes. So what do they do now? It really is a turning point.
One of the things that jarred me slightly with this movie, that sort of, but it also triggers the race to the end, is that out of nowhere, Mrs. Glenn turns up at March's house to talk to him. We never know why she turned up. I don't know if there's a cut scene or something, but we don't know why she's there. But as a result of her arriving, we then go to Misty's house. We realize that there was a projector. We realize that her aunt didn't actually see Misty. She saw a projection. She saw a film, and then it all connects that, oh God, it's the porno that they made that she was watching, and it's going to be shown at the big auto show that's happening in LA.
This is why the misinterpreted clue is so good, because it preempts the scene where March realizes and twigs that she was watching. She'd seen the film projected onto the wall. She'd not seen a dead woman walking around, and it makes that reveal all the better.
The next thing is the big climax at the auto show, desperately trying to find the movie there's callbacks to there's the projectionist, the kid who took them to Amelia's boyfriend's house is there. The assassin guy. There's this big. It's just a big action race to find this thing and stop it. It's one of the most satisfying finales to a noir film. I think it just everything is crackling this whole time. The action is great. The payoffs are great. The comedy is great. I like the fact that March falls from the roof and lands in the pool. And when Healy's like, "How'd you get down here so fast?" He's like, "Did you fall again?"
Well, there's that great shot where, because he falls with one of the hitmen, doesn't he? They're falling in tandem. Yeah. The hitman just splatters on the side of the pool, and he lands in the water.
A proper splatter as well. It's
Yeah.
Gross.
It's so well done.
I guess if there was one maybe minor complaint is we have the idea that Amelia's mom is behind a lot of this stuff. We have an idea that she's in connection with the auto show people and the one of the main guy there from Detroit. We don't really, I guess it doesn't matter too much. We don't really have a sense of who this auto guy is or why he fully matters, because he wasn't a character that. There was just a slight level of maybe, I don't know. Everyone else has been so well developed that this one character who does seem sort of important to the whole plot of the porno is someone that we don't actually know.
Yeah,
kind of at all.
But yeah, I don't know why he's there, and I'm not sure that you'd lose anything if he wasn't there.
Yeah, because you must get that film.
The point being made about Amelia's mum and this auto show. And what's behind all that is made anyway without him being there.
But again, I think the general payoff from this film is great. They retrieve the film. The good guys win until they don't, because this is, after all, a noir movie, and you're never really going to take down the rich villain.
Yeah,
Kim Basinger is not going down.
This is what I think is the payoff for Amelia getting shot in that brutal way. Yeah, because March says, sometimes you just win. When they're in the bar at the end, he says, sometimes you just win. And I thought, well, have you won? Because like a lot of noir thrillers, you're not going to beat that corruption. You're not going to get on top of it.
Yeah.
But also, when you boil it down, you were both either hired or sworn to protect Amelia, and you didn't. So you might think you've won, but I'm not so sure you did. Yes. You sort of won, but it was a bittersweet victory, maybe. Well, it came at a cost. But again, all noir, all good noir, the detective succeeds at a cost.
Yeah.
It's not all wrapped up in a nice bow. These two don't realise that they haven't actually won, whereas Spade would know.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think maybe I think Healy knows.
I think Healy might know.
Because there's that wonderful line exchange where March is like, look on the bright side, no one got hurt. And Healy's like, people got hurt. He's like, well, I'm saying I think they died quickly, so I don't think they got hurt. But I think when March is saying that sometimes you just win, I never interpreted that to mean the case, because the case they didn't win. They were right and they solved it and they won in that regards. But I think the win was more of a moral win. The sort of March just sort of clawed his way out of depression almost. He seems a bit lighter in the end, as opposed to the sort of weighed down by the guilt. And maybe he would have earned his daughter's love again in that respect again, from the way he saved her. Like he was really pathetic on that roof, and she was like, oh my God, my dad's going to let me die. But he was actually in control the whole time. He was putting on an act in order to get the upper hand to save the kid.
Yeah, when he's crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in that regard I think that's what he means by sometimes you just win. I think it's more to do with that emotion and that psychological overcoming of those hangups. I think that's my takeaway from that.
Yeah, I think you could say that. And I think you're absolutely right that Healy knows.
Yeah.
Healy definitely knows that they've not really done what they should have done.
People got hurt.
But whether March does is an interesting question.
Yes.
But I love the fact that it's open ended. That you can do that.
Yeah.
You can have that sort of debate about what March means by you win.
this film, when I first saw it, I just thought, wow, this was terrific. And every time I revisit it, I'm blown away by how solid it is.
It is.
And
It really is.
again, it's a shame. It's a damn shame that this film did not do well. There's a part of me. Well, I guess it's twofold. There's a part of me. It's like I'm glad that it did as well as it did. I'm glad that it exists. I would love a sequel, but I also know how quickly that stuff can get out of hand. I mean, by the time we're into Lethal Weapon 4 or 5, well, the plot is lost. Those films are ridiculously silly. We know that Crowe would love to return to this role. We know that recently in the news, Ryan Gosling was basically saying that the Angry Birds movie was the reason this film didn't do well.
I saw that. Yeah, Angry Birds, the movie, came out at the same time.
Who is talking about Angry Birds now?
Yeah, quite.
No one. But you see, Nice Guys pops up on my timeline a couple of times a month from people who've like either just found it or rewatching it and saying how great it is. Like this is a movie like, I want to say probably like Blade Runner, that over time people are just constantly finding and revisiting and realizing just how good it is, and will continue to be revisited. No one is watching Angry Goddamn Birds.
No, absolutely. I think you're probably right. I do wonder whether an immediate sequel would they have. It would have been interesting to see what the two characters are like now that they're an alliance. But it would be very easy to slip into, as they did with the Sherlock Holmes sequel, making too much comedy out of that relationship.
I would trust, I guess there's a caveat to everything I've said. I would trust Shane Black with that sequel in the way that I feel that this sequel to Lethal Weapon 2, or I feel the sequel to Lethal Weapon 2, is quite strong. Now, I know that there's a lot of problems with Lethal Weapon 2 and that Shane wrote the story and other people came in and tweaked a bunch of stuff. But ultimately, I think there are hangovers from a lot of what Shane had in mind. I have faith that he could have done a sequel and done it justice. It's just that we live in a world of 40 Marvel movies a year that makes sequels and getting excited for sequels a little bit harder to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Right now,
there's certainly mileage in these two for my money, and it wouldn't be a sequel that was made just to cash in. It would be a sequel that was made because there was something to say, and I think that's a massive difference.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately it is a shame that we never got that sequel. It's a shame that 2016 was loaded with so many comic book movies, so many things that people weren't. It was that summer. That's like that peak moment of pop culture where it's just the saturation has begun. I'm bored by it all. I'm looking for original stuff. Yeah. And I'm finding Nice Guys. I'm finding other things to latch onto. Well, and
history can be a cruel mistress, can't she? And it'll be interesting to do a whatever a podcast will be called 20 years from now, to see whether we're still talking about Captain America or whether we're still talking about Nice Guys.
But I think Nice Guys has the staying power. I think it's got staying power. Writing is great. Visually,
it's got what all good cinema should have, and that is a good story. I mean, I read a good story, good characters, well cast, well written, and well directed. And what more can you ask from a film? And if a film like that doesn't have staying power, then what film will have?
It's a movie. It's again, I'm not going to say this, that Nice Guys is this like pinnacle of genius crime writing. It is solid. It's solid in its mystery. It's solid in its execution. It's solid in its setup and its payoffs. Everything clicks and makes sense. The mystery of Misty Mountains, the mystery of Amelia, the mystery of the porno, who is killing them, everything is makes sense. But again, we talk about film noir or hard-boiled fiction. Like, those stories don't follow this, like, it's not a perfect puzzle. It's your road to the end is not this easy journey. It's not everything falling into place perfectly. It's messy, and their adventure is very messy. But when you step back and look at the clues and how it all fits together, it works. Absolutely, it works.
Detective stories or crime stories like this, and like Chandler and Hammett and all those, they aren't puzzles as such.
Yeah.
It's as I think we said in the Big Sleep episode, it's that lead. Let's see where this lead takes us. Let's see where that lead takes us. This film's that done very, very well, and I think it's just so well done, and it's done with such confidence, as you say, but with such flair that it's impossible not to like this film.
How many Falcons would you give The Nice Guys?
I'm going to give it 4.5, and I'm only knocking half a Falcon because I did think it overdid the roles a little bit, by which I mean it set up that Healy was the tough guy, it set up that March was the incompetent, and it set up that Holly was the best detective out of the three of them. And that, certainly towards the end of the film, that started to become a bit laboured for me. But I'm saying that it's to an infinitesimal degree. You know, it didn't spoil the film at all. I just thought we've seen some of these gags we've seen before.
I think for me, I'm gonna be generous, and I'm gonna give it 5. I do think it is. I think it's very well written, very well acted, very well shot. Music is great. Characters are rich. There are a couple of little blemishes, but I'm willing to kind of look past them. For one of the main reasons is that I also feel like this was one of the best films to come out of 2016, and one of the most refreshing crime films to come out in a very long time. Not sure we've had one as refreshing since. I would maybe say Blade Runner 2049. There are things that could knock it down to 4.5, but I'm going to give it a 5 because I love this movie.
And that's our investigation into The Nice Guys. Thank you for joining us on it. We hope to see you back in the consulting room next week. Until then, please do like and subscribe, and be sure to take care walking down those mean streets.